Hey, what's up with you guys? Hey, welcome back to another video. Now, I was right about to go in to do my super fun Torghast for the week, and I saw that there are some updates to the PTR patch notes. Now, these are dated February 23rd, which is today. Just double checking. So let's go through these because there's actually some really significant stuff for you Warlock players. Now, a couple things just to kind of touch and continue the saga of Necrolord as we go into these buffs with this patch. These look like these are all relevant to like the followers and stuff. So nothing too exciting here. Let's look down here at the class changes though for Warlock. We have Curse of Tongues now lasts for 1 minute, was 30 seconds, and lasts 20 seconds in PvP, was 12 seconds. This is actually insanely good because currently you're having to use a lot of globals in order to actually maintain this, especially if we're talking about multiple targets. This is almost doubling the duration of this in PvP, and the fact that it's going to be a 1 minute duration in PvE means that you can really bring this utility in general as a Warlock, and it's not going to hinder your DPS nearly as much. You're going to be able to spend half as many globals as you were having to before, so that's very big, very welcome. And if you remember, you watched the last video, Amplify Curse is also getting a buff in the reduction of its cooldown, so it's down from 45 seconds to 30 seconds. That change is still in these patch notes. They're very long, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but trust me, they're still in here. So pairing that means that you're going to be able to almost maintain 100% uptime of Amplified Curse of Tongues potentially on a healer, assuming you're going to be close, right? Because it's going to last 20 seconds. Amp Curse is a 30-second cooldown, so you get the picture. You're going to be able to have a very significant uptime on that, which is going to be very strong in a lot of situations. So I'm really looking forward to that utility that we're going to have. Now, the first line here is it's specific to Demonology. We already talked about, but all of your summoned minions, with the exception of your imps, will attack as your primary pet does. So it will follow your primary pet commands, pet passive, pet attack, things like that. Very big. I think a lot of people don't really realize how significant this is, but this is going to make, in my opinion, is going to make Demonology very strong and viable when we're talking about arena and RBGs, because that was a big issue. This should also help you on a few boss fights like Council and things like that, being able to swap to the attendants and being able to really have a lot more control over your playstyle, and it's going to provide a lot more kind of like a higher skill ceiling, and it's not going to be so random. So this is very big. This by itself would be a huge buff in general. Now, this is a new one. This got added into this list of patch notes called Stalkers. Attack power is increased by 10%, and Dreadbite and Dreadlash damage is increased by 10%. This is actually very massive. Now, if you watched the last video on the patch notes, we talked about the legendaries. The call of the calling, what is it called? Dreadstalker Legendary. Look, see how many patch notes there are. Also is getting a buff. It's right here. Grim Inquisitor Dread Calling is a 4% per stack, up from 3%. So you pair this with the fact that your Dreadstalkers are now going to have 10% increased attack power, which is basically going to increase their auto attack damage during their summon time, and their Dreadbite is going to be doing 10% more damage, paired with the Bone Jump on Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling, now is going to make things like Carnivorous Stalkers, the Potency Conduit, actually viable, in my opinion. I think this is actually going to be a really competitive build in both Mythic Plus, potentially even in single target. I don't know if this is going to be enough to supersede Demonic Synergy and some of that play style, but currently right now we really only have like one very valuable Potency Conduit, in my opinion, that being the Fell Commando conduit, because of just the consistency. Obviously Born of Blood's very good as well, but the fact that we can basically be playing this play style and run potentially this legendary and also run Carnivorous Stalkers Potency Conduit with Fell Commando, like you can start seeing there's a lot of synergy here, where this is actually, I think, going to be a very big buff and kind of like a quality of life improvement to Demonology in general, helping a lot with kind of our consistency, not having so much damage solely dependent on summoning these big tyrants, right? So that's pretty big. One thing to mention here is the Bale Spiders buff is still the same from the damage aspect, but the duration is not specified here. I'm really hoping that they are not removing that and they are going to buff it up to 20-second buff duration rather than a 15-second buff. But again, that's not specified on these notes for some reason. It was on the other link, the PTR link before. So hopefully that is going to stay in, but just one thing that is also worth mentioning. Now, last thing I wanted to mention too is they made one minor change here to Necrolord. This is the damage taken reduction while casting Fleshcraft was a 30% damage mitigation at one point, and it's now down to a 20% damage mitigation. I think this is okay because the main thing in my opinion that's really valuable is the 40% health buff. The damage mitigation is cool. I like that aspect of it, but I really want the shield part to feel significant, because being able to use this as a shield wall, if it can be kicked, like I've mentioned before, you guys have heard me talk about this a few times, is not very valuable to me. So I'm glad that they buffed the damage reduction aspect and not the shield amount, because I feel like Fleshcraft should feel like a big shield that you're really being able to utilize. Now, one thing worth mentioning this is, I kind of touched on this in the last video, but the current way this works is that the different aspects via volatile solvent, the resourceful flesh crafting, and these other bonuses, the bonuses in the dungeons, the Necrolord dungeons, would all be contingent on you standing next to the mob or in close proximity to the mob to like leech their souls, basically. This now says moving near an enemy's corpse consumes their essence to reduce Fleshcraft's cooldown. This is the interaction that is going to be triggering the things within the dungeons, things like volatile solvents, which are all those various buffs that you can get from Fleshcraft, as well as resourceful Fleshcrafting, reducing the cooldown by an additional 1 second. So this is more realistically, rather than a 2-minute cooldown, going to be like, I think like a 1.5 minute cooldown, I think, in a lot of situations, depending on what kind of content you're doing. But what I'm really curious to see is in like a BG setting, is this going to require the shield to be up and active on you to be basically consuming these corpses? And if so, maybe volatile solvent ends up actually being very strong, because you're going to be having all these various buffs that you're getting. Hopefully, I'm hoping that this still triggers even if the shield has been DPS through and the shield has fallen off, and it's contingent more on Fleshcraft being on cooldown than anything. But we'll have to wait and see, because it's not very clear by these patch notes, and I haven't tried out the PTR yet. But I just wanted to mention that, because these are all very good tweaks to what is currently not a very strong or significant ability in a lot of situations, and I think this is getting close to making it a very impactful and like a very just big significant build ability, where it feels like you're picking Necrolord and you're really getting your bang for your buck. Now the PvP changes are still the same. Down here, I can just show you to confirm real quick for Warlock. Amp Curse. Now casting circle is still here. They changed the verbiage on this. It just says no longer causes unending resolve to stop granting immunity to interrupts. Demon armor increased from 90% to 120%, so it's the same as it was before. Affliction, I think this might be new. Fixed an issue where rapid contingent PvP talent could be used while under the effects of crowd control. So I don't play Affliction, so I wasn't familiar with that one, but that's going to be fixed as well. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to cover that Dreadstalker change because they just kind of slipped that in there. That's very significant, though. If they're making changes to Dreadstalker, as long as with the Dread Calling Legendary, those are like all pretty big significant tweaks and changes. And I think it is going to give us a lot of viable options here in the near future moving forward. So anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. Let me know down below if you have any questions or if there's anything that I left out, and I can't wait for this patch to go live. I hope you guys are excited as I am. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.